Earlier this month, I would say, we saw President Macron of France join with dozens of French business leaders on a trip to China, and they returned with business deals. Last week, we saw President Lula of Brazil not only travel to China with dozens of Brazilian business leaders, but come back with deals, but also a unified opposition to U.S. trade and foreign policy as well. In addition to getting our fiscal house in order, what can Congress and policymakers do to help ensure the long-term competitiveness of the United States? Because what we're seeing is many countries and marketplaces not looking to the U.S. for those growth opportunities, but perhaps looking elsewhere.
Look, I think it's a combination of economics and foreign policy. But we could take this current situation about the debt ceiling to actually solve part of that problem too. Because when I'm looking to solve the debt ceiling, when I say limit, save, and grow, the grow portion. We all know it's difficult in this nation to build anything. It's difficult to work with the government. Public-private partnerships. You really got to want to do it to be able to make it happen. And then people will stream some other countries that makes it easier and make it more welcoming for where capital can be. Why don't we take this current situation to sit down within both parties and not focus on party, but focus on country? And say, what could come out of here that would make America stronger, make it easier to produce in America? And that would be cutting some red tape, cutting some of the burdensome regulations, making some common sense decisions. And you can utilize the debt ceiling as the opportunity to do it. And you can build with our allies. The other thing, too, is we should actually enhance the things that God has blessed this nation with. Look, it doesn't matter what state you're in. Anywhere in this country, we need to expand every form of energy we have. Every form. From wind, from solar, to petroleum, to natural gas. But God has blessed us with this. So not only could we lower our energy costs, which will lower inflation, lower the cost of goods, let families keep more money in their pocket, but geopolitically, we can make the world safer, and environmentally, we could lower global emissions. If we replaced Russian natural gas, just the amount that they have sold to Europe for 1 year, we would lower CO2 emissions by 218 million tons. American natural gas is 41% cleaner. But also think about the lessons that we've learned from Ukraine. Dependency makes us weaker. When you're looking to the future, we want to be less dependent on other countries, especially when it comes to China, right? We want to support our allies. Geopolitically, we want to be stronger economically. All of that could be a beginning of a stepping stone of solving those problems by dealing with the debt ceiling. I mean, seriously, when I raised in the speech, so people understand, a debt ceiling is your child having a credit card. They went out, they charged it up. You're responsible for paying it, so yes, we're going to pay our debt. But you just wouldn't raise the limit. You'd say, why are you spending this? Every family does this. Why is the only place we're not going to do this in our government? And it's just not the fear of failing on the debt ceiling. It's what's happening in the world today. We're hearing our allies going over and visiting, right? President of France, Macron, the only foreign leader that President Biden has done a state dinner for, went to see President Xi, came back and told Europe we should become less dependent upon America. That's our ally. And the other fear we all should have as Americans in studying history, the grouping and the growth of China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran, literally calling themselves an axis of power. We should not ignore that. The movement away from the dollar. But the one thing I will tell you, the only way the dollar fails become the world currency is not what China or other countries do. It's what we do from within. And spending too much money, putting ourselves in $31 trillion of debt is a greater threat than Brazil using the yuan than the dollar. And we solve our problems not looking other places, but looking within first. My speech today wasn't to criticize and say one side's right, the other side's wrong. It was to tell the rest of this country that we're about to hit a debt ceiling. I've been trying to come to an agreement, but the president doesn't even want to talk. And our whole government is designed to find compromise. And we've got our rest of our allies looking different. We've got big problems. But I still believe this. The greatest nation in the world is here. The greatest form of government is here. And the way we can solve it is if we work together, not individually. That's our solution.
Well, maybe one last question, Mr. Speaker. You mentioned in your speech today is your 100th day as Speaker, so congratulations. Congratulations for...
How many of you watch the Speaker's vote? Best reality TV, right?
15 rounds?
15 rounds.
15 rounds.
It's a good boxing match.
That's
Never give up.
Well, what would you say you are most proud of in the first 100 days, and what are you most excited about in the next 100 days and beyond?
You know, I never measure within 100 days, but there's some really significant things we've done in 100 days. I don't mind being underestimated. I think it's better if I'm just hitting singles and doubles, I'll score more runs. I am now the Speaker of the House. I'm not the Republican leader. And I have responsibilities that may be a little different. I'm never going to solve big problems alone. We've got a lot of problems to solve. We have to come together. So it's kind of like Jim Collins making that flywheel work, right? How do you bring Congress back together? I'm proud of the fact of the relationship I've built with Hakeem on the other side. I decided when I got elected, I'm going to treat him the way I wanted to be treated. I'm proud of the fact, bipartisan, we were able to create a select committee on China. I'm proud of the fact that within the 100 days, we have passed more bills than the last Congress, but we have created a Parents' Bill of Rights, that you have a say in your kids' education. We've cut the 87,000 IRS agents out of the House. I think government should be here to work for you, not go after you. I'm proud of the fact that we stood up for law and order. It might just be in DC, but it sent a message across the world. I'm proud of the fact that H.R. 1 was bipartisan. It's the core of what we want to do economically, our energy policy of where to be. In this first 100 days, I stood at the Reagan Library, not with just members of my own party, but an equal number of members on both sides of the aisle. And we sat down and we met with the president of Taiwan. And when I look to the future and the threats that are there, then we're going to take action to make sure those threats don't happen. How can we deter something bad from happening? And you know what? I'm proud of the fact I haven't had my head in the sand and said I would not talk to the president about the debt ceiling. I'm proud that we're here today and having an honest conversation with the American public. Not preconceived what has to be decided upon, but willing to sit down in good faith to find a sensible, rational, responsible way forward so America would be stronger. Look, 15 rounds were tough, but they made me stronger. It's not a problem that we have debate. It shouldn't be just uniform as we go through. And I think our discussion should argue on both sides. But at the end of the day, we should find what unites us to make us stronger.